Nee, ek het nie geweet dat slawe 'n kalendermaand gehad het nie. Op die oomblik toe ek groot word, toe was ons nie slawery gewees in Kaapstad nie. My ouma en my oupa het me vertel hoe swaar hulle gekry het altyd. Hoe het hulle in Tilbag en in Calvinia, hoe het hulle swaar gekry het nie. Hoe het hulle kinders en die wat opgegroei het, die dam, hulle het gevlug. Nie eintlik gevlug nie, hulle het weggekom uit die plek het. En op baie maniere is het, dat het, toe sê ek nie, maar hulle was dan vlugtelinge. Want hoekom uit Calvinia uit, om naar die Westkaap toe te vlug? Dan was het 'n swaar kry lewe gewees. Baie daar, gesê het was hulle sonder kos. Hulle het vee gehad, maar die vee was sommer verwoes gewees. En hulle geleef het van die bokkie, die skaap, die koeitjie wat hulle gehad het en so. Daarvan moet hulle geleef het ook. Die slawe begin. Nee, eintlik, dat is nie dat my effect nie, maar ek was, even toe ek begin groot word het, toe ek skool toe gaan, het ek nie 'n plastic bakkie, 'n kosbakkie gehad nie. By die winkels het die breinpapier kadoesies wat altyd die suiker in die rys ingegooi het, geweeg het op die skaal. Dit was my kosbakkie skool toe gewees. My oupa, hy was van Calvinia gewees. Maar ek was ongeveer 6 jaar oud gewees, toen hy gesterf het. Want ek saam met my oma geleef, en my ma. My ma was nie getrouwd gewees nie. Want toe my pa van my maak, toe vat hy 'n ander vrou. En toe sê my ma, nooit weer in haar lewe gaat sy 'n man vat nie. En sy het myself gegrown up. Sy het myself groot gemaakt. En sy het my groot gemaakt, tot ek kan gaan werken op 15-jarige ouderdom. Toen moet ik school los, om voor mijn ma en mijn oma een huis te gaan geven. Want die was hij in de apartheid jaren moest geweest. Als daar niet een man voor de huis werkt, nie, dan moet ma of oma, dan word je weggejaagd. Toen moet ik in die school gaan zijn het 7. Ik heb nog die 1 jaar die post geleerd van 8, maar ik heb die gemaakt nie. Om te gaan werken voor mijn ma en voor mijn oma verreis. Maar toen had die werk zo, dat ik moet gaan werken van 7 uur af 's ochtends tot 9 uur 's avonds. Op het is 2 uur, 3 uur in de ochtend, dan weer 7 uur, moet ik weer aan die werk geweest, bij Roodsgoedval. En zo is het, dat mijn ma nooit een man gevat het. Mijn oma is overleden, ik heb mijn oma begraven. Ik heb mijn ma ook begraven. Maar ik kan zeggen dank. En toen kwam hulle toen mij bang waar ik geweest het. En ik heb voor hulle gewerkt. Tot hulle die graf toegegaan en ik heb hulle altijd begraven ook. Ja, mijn ma heeft geleefd in die fabriek gewerkt. En ik heb dus voor haar gewerkt toen. Toen zei ze 1 dag van mij. Ik kan niet meer. Die was goed onduidelijk was niet. Want ik word nou oud in die. Je mag jouw vrouw vatten die. Toen ik voor haar ontmoet in die fabrieken. Zij is van Belgravia in die Kapen. Maar ze kon werken in die fabrieken. Ze was steeds geweest van het hoek bij mensen. En toen ik haar daar ontmoette, toen zei mijn ma, nee, hij wil trouw. Dat je in de huis kan komen. Dat je de huis kan komen, dat je de huis kan houden. Maar nu komt mijn arms zwak in die. Mijn ma had gesterven op 78-jarige ouderdom. En toen ik aan zij getrouwd, maar woensdag. En die kerk, St. George's. Die woensdag. Ja, was omtrent zo 4 uur getrouwd. Net op Franse hoek toe die aan. Dat is gekomen omtrent zo 7 uur. En dat is vrienden wat ik bij je goed ken. Is hij nog grandkarren geweest? He? Die vrienden gezegd, nee, ik rij uit. En ik gezegd, ik trouw net, dat ik net getrouwd is. Dat ik die stem opgepakt heb en dat ik had getekend heb, dat ik wettig getrouwd is in die. En toen die ene vriend, toen zei hij, die andere jong, nog elkaar man. Toen mijn neef ook elkaar gegeven. Bij mijn nichtjes huis, daar had hulle theetafel gemaakt. Ik heb die aan 9 uur terug Linkie dokter gekomen. Die mensen die waggelden al voor die trouwen en die. En dat is mensen wat ik altijd geholpen, het gas volmaken, gasfabriek toevat, één terugbrengen. Hulle het voor mij koeken gebakken die. Ik heb niet een cent voor mijn bruiloft uitgegeven, voor die goed doen voor ons mensen. Maar dat was zwakere jaren van mij geweest. Het was bij zwakere jaren geweest. Bij RFF heb ik begin werk als op die belden, die perskebelden. Die bakken van 10 moet gestekt geworden. Dan was er altijd een zwart mannetje, Afrikaan, wat hem weggereden. Op 15-jarige ouderdom kan ik dat, als het 4,5 en het wordt 10 uur, dat ik nog niet die kracht gehad heb, maar ik heb het nog kunnen, om die groot aluminiumbakken 10 uur te stek. Dan zeg hij van mij, die zwart man, stoot net aan. Dan stek hij die bakken, dan reed hij naar die bel toe, om die bakken daar te gaan afleiden. Dan reed hij weer vannacht terug in die. En zo heb ik nu aangegaan. En elke vrijdag, toen zei ik van mijn ma, ik ga voor elke vrijdag een pak boksertabak kopen. Voor die wat het me helpt. Heel week nu helpt. En dat kan omtrent zeker 6 of 8 weken heb ik gedaan. Van 15-jarige ouderdom af, tot ik afgetraind van die werk af. Op 38 jaar. Toen kan ik zeggen, dank je Heer. The trial is over, the battle won. Now is it victor triumph done. Let every song of praise be sung. Halleluja. Kan ik gezegd in die. Ja, maar ze mens kan je hart uitpraten. En je kan vertellen waarvan je komt. En in je zware jaren. Dan is het lekker om je hart uit te praten. Dan voel je weer verlichtend.
The history of slavery is it's about us really, the people that came here. We were part of a group of endangered Indians that's from the east. Whether they were all Indians, we don't know, but I know we were from India. And they were taken here to work on the sugar plantations and establish sugar plantations here. And those who weren't dropped here to work on the sugar plantations were taken around the tip of Africa and dropped at St. Helena. That was the time of the French occupation, which later became the British occupation. And they worked there. And in 1834, when slavery was abolished, I think they were given, our forebears were given the option of being dropped somewhere. And I think our forebears, my great-grandfathers, those of our old group of them, I think they elected to be dropped in South Africa, in the Cape Province or wherever. That's why we ended up in the Bull Cup. And from there, once you were a baptized slave, you were given a piece of land with a Bible and to continue living there and start populating the land. That briefly is what I know about it. Yes, it depends on the month that you arrived at the Cape. And you were assigned in groups, you came in groups as they got rid of the people, because remember the boats at that time weren't that fast. And because these were black people most probably, they all were given limited accommodation on the boats. And when they were dropped here, in the groups they were given, right, you in March, you in January, you in February, and so on. Basically, and your original surname was totally ignored, because after all, you were a property. You were that mentality still prevailed even after emancipation of slaves. That mentality still remained within the mindsets of the people that were in authority, which were either the British or whoever, or the Boers at that time. So that is why you got those names. I mean, when they came here, I mean, those were closed books for the black people, for the slave descendants. We couldn't go into the archives really. It's only just before the 19th century started. I think that's the first time really that things were recorded about slaves, other than being the property of some person. And although the law was now abolished, but it still continued amongst the farmers here and so on, because South Africa was that time partly British, partly French, partly a bit of everything. because remember the National Party only really came to power in 1948. So things actually got worse. Everything was hidden from you. And with that being said, ignorance is bliss to a certain extent until we started asking questions. And we discovered there's so many things that we didn't know about ourselves. And many people here at the Cape, especially this area of Kensington, they have a lot of mixed blood in them. And not necessarily of South Africa, the indigenous tribes here, but mostly from overseas people and so on. We discovered that from my mother's side, her history is better recorded because they were white, they were Scottish. And their history is better recorded because you can go onto the internet and you can Google the baths. And that is where my grandfather came from, the McGregor clan. Having history recorded, you were black, and that's how we were treated, as a non-entity. And I'm sorry about that, the history wasn't recorded, really properly recorded. No, I'm not embarrassed from, I don't think it's, you are right, you mustn't forget your roots. We tend to forget that too easily. But your roots makes you who you are. And I think one shouldn't be embarrassed because I had no part in it. I'm just a product of history. So to say that I'm embarrassed from where, it's what I make of myself. That is the difference. If you choose to lie down, then you stay down. But it's your choice to get up, dust off the history, and move on with your life, because you set goals, you have dreams, and that is what you must go for. To be embarrassed by your history or your background, to me, it is absolutely silly. I believe that much of what you see in Cape Town is because of those people who had that craft. They came here with a craft. And if you look at woodwork, if you look at building work, stonemasons, blacksmiths, carpenters, these were all people that were highly skilled. And I assume that my grandfather was one of them, the great-grandfather was one of them. That's why they brought him here, and those were the prize slaves. Those were the slaves that could bring you more money than the ordinary ones that went into agriculture and established farms, harvesting and that. These were two distinct classes. And I think what we see in Cape Town today is because of them, especially the furniture and things like that. You can see the intricate work that these Eastern slaves did with the wood. The carvings, the carving doors, the furniture that you even see in a castle today. There are still remnants of that era. So the craftsman definitely was much more value than the ordinary slaves. The Februaries, we love the Februaries because they are very pious in whatever they do. They are honest. Most of them are very straightforward. They tell you what it is. They don't allow things to get them down. But they are very loving to their own families. They are very protective, almost overprotective, and they know their roots. And the Anglicization of these slaves, they adopted whatever was given to them and used it and internalized it, and became better people, better than many people expected them to become. They didn't just stay slave or subjected to some laws. They branched out, they went to improve themselves, and that is what you see today. That's why, being embarrassed by my sermon, I am not. I'm actually very proud of my sermon because there's a story to it, there's a heritage to it, there's a almost embarrassing those that ill-treated the slaves should actually be embarrassed. Because above those circumstances, putting the circumstances behind them, they still arose and were better than what they were that they came here with. But what I've learned is that if you were a slave, obviously slaves were considered unchristian. If you were baptized, you were considered a free man, and you were given a Bible and possibly a piece of land to work at. That's why you have places like Peniel and Genadendal and probably those mission stations. Yes, they started off the whole family clan of the February clan. The February clan was from Bukap, there in Cape Town. And I suppose when the family grew and they outgrew the place, they move in different directions and were given land was probably up in the various areas. That's why you find the Februaries everywhere. In Somerset Ways, in Pineal, Stellenbosch, Paarl, right up into Zoa in near Oudtshoorn. I found it very stimulating and interesting, really, because I think this thing was a long time in coming, that somebody said something about the slaves. And I love this thing that you are running, this program that you are running, because it will reveal even more than what I know. It's supposed to do that. And I think it's going to get people in touch with their background, with their history, with their ancestry. And I think if more is said about this, more will be sort of revealed to people, and they will become more accepting of who they are really, and not feel as if they are throwaways or whatever. They will have roots somewhere. And I think that is the way to go, and this thing will help a lot in that respect. It will help a lot.
My name is Leonard Abraham Mart. I was born 1934. I'm 81 years of age this year. Born in Vesco, grew up, was forcefully removed from that area in 1959. We find ourselves in Elsa's River and later removed to this area. I came here in 1972 and I've stayed here ever since.
Yeah, my name is Leonard Mart. I was born in 1961. I'm 54 now. Currently, I was a teacher. Currently, I'm an attorney, practicing sort of in conveyancing more or less. This is my uncle, and I'm staying in Strandfontein now for the last 28 years.
I learned about slaves in South Africa for the first time in history at school. But when I went to see my people, my family in Willemore in 1956, April for the first time, I was introduced to the greater family. And there I was told that I have a slave history. There was my uncle was still alive, the old people, and I saw some of them. I also discovered that most of my people down there were educated people. They were teachers, working out on farms, assisting other people to be educated. So this is how I come to know of my history as a slave myself.
Through the school system, we became aware of slavery. In fact, it's all over our sort of South African history that we were taught in school. In fact, I was also at UWC, studied there for a number of years, and history is one of my majors, so yes, I was quite aware of slavery and the groot trek and whatever. Yes, and we were also aware that, look, there is some kind of connection to the slave history, but it wasn't, let's say, until we met, we developed, and so on, that this thing sort of, the slaves took hands over over time, and that's it. We got to that point where we now try to see the link and try to find the link, but we were aware that, yes, we belong somewhere there. I'm trying to find the link. I see that there are sort of gaps missing. For instance, sometimes you get to a point and then you say, okay, maybe this is it. And then you find that in the annals, it just says, ongetrouwd. But you can't find the name of the child because the mother was ongetrouwd. And you say, oh my goodness. For instance, this morning, I tried to find Gert Mart.
Okay.
Because Iso Mart, his father was Gert Mart, and that would sort of put us into 1790. And I couldn't find Gert Mart. And I said, no, the history was only recorded from 19 so on and so on onwards. And okay, so now there's a big gap. I can't find Gert Mart. But we are grateful for the death notices that were sort of submitted to the master's office, because one of the great-grandpas, Iso Mart, his death notice is there. And the name of his father is there, and all his children. which sort of tell us where we come from, and that puts us sort of inward more. But unfortunately, I couldn't go back further.
I wish more that has been done so that people knew about slaves and the difficulties they encountered, more especially in the country, because it was through slavery which was perpetuated, which we experienced in the apartheid era. So if people knew more about slavery, people would have known their origins and how to move forward. Some of us were very lucky to in spite of the difficulties in which we find ourselves. I found myself on the factory floor, and I had to educate myself on the factory floor, went for training in the ministry, later went to university. We got up, and so did the sons of my brothers. But not all people. If we knew where we come from, and we saw other people arising from the ashes, then it would have made a big difference.
Yes, I would say that from an academic point of view, a lot has been done to record the history. You can find it on the websites, you can go to National Archives, etc., etc. However, there are still big gaps, and a lot of information can be found to church histories, to church archives, and whatever. But I think the people on the ground, let's say the community itself, they have sort of forgotten that part of the history. Man, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. When people call me on the phone and I introduce myself and I said Mr. Martin, then they say Mr. Martin? How do you say Mr. Mr. what? I said January, February, March, Mr. March. So now they understand Mr. March. But there's nothing to be embarrassed about. We couldn't help it if our great-great-grandparents became slaves. Are you with me now? And the slaves, like you rightly said, made a tremendous contribution to this country. Groot Constantia wouldn't be there today if it wasn't for slaves. You've got one, let's say, farmer there, colonist, and he's got 29 slaves. Are you with me now? They build the land, not him. But of course, obviously, they will suffer the most.
Yeah.
And I think people must put proud sort of in inverted commas in the fact that I'm not proud to be a slave. I'm not a slave, and I hate slavery.
Being branded as such a...
However, I realize that this is where I come from, and this is you can't escape it, and there's no point in hiding. But you also realize the good things that they have done and the contribution you have made, and I think that it is on us to actually take those things forward. Unfortunately, given our history here in this country, like when slavery ended, the farmers the colonists were still in charge. We had so many years of apartheid, and apartheid has ended. But ask yourself, who's still in charge? Are you with me now? So yes, we're no longer slaves, we no longer suffer under apartheid, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
My name is Shafiq April. We are now in Hanover Park at my residence of 17B Villains Walk. I know very little about slavery in South Africa. It's only what I read about it, how people were treated during those years. That's about all I can recall. When it came to New Year's Eve, I believe that the slaves were given off, the day off, as a form of celebration. That's the only thing I know about it. I was not aware that slaves were given calendar names. No, I think it, safety was in a name. So I don't think I was born with it and sticking to it, because my fathers or my forefathers, they had that name and I just continued on it. I would have very much liked that there should have been more recording about our family background, our family tree. Because as I mentioned earlier, I'm the third eldest of the family of 4. And I know very little about my father. The only thing I know, he was a painter. And my mother was a factory worker at a sweets factory. That's about all I know about the family. But I'm not embarrassed by the slave heritage. I would say it is more like, we were subjected at those years, I think, to be part of the slavery colony, which we inherited. and I cannot say much about it. Yeah, it is a dinges of hope, I would say, because I treat slavery with disdain. I don't like this word slavery, and I don't, because I think that all people are the same through the grace of the Almighty, and I can't see myself, I mean, in this modern age, going back to slaves, the master and servant type of thing. Well, the reason I came from a Christian background, but I had a lot of Muslim friends, and I was fascinated by the way they conducted their way of life and the teachings of the religion, and that's turned me into to learn more about Islam. I then embraced Islam as in 1900 and something, 60, 66, 60, around there, and I'm not sorry about it. I've learned such a lot about religion and mankind as a whole. That's why I abhorred the slavery type of thing. It was in 1960 something, 70s, I joined up with a choir. Eventually I was elected as secretary of this board, quite a very big board, the Cape Malay Choir Board. And then in 1986, they picked me as the president, which I'm still the president. It's now 22 years. I think I'm the longest surviving president of the board. And we used to have 45 choirs, we got now 26 choirs. And we also went on tour. In 1981 and 1984, we were invited to the Tulip Festival in Holland. And we were the first choir from the Malay choir boards to have visited Holland. They called it the Tulip Festival in Katzwijk. And from there on, the invitations came. We went to Spain, we went to Germany, we went to London, Switzerland, we went to Bregenz. All those places we were invited to sing. And it's funny enough, when it came to Holland, everybody was standing up, clapping hands. We sang Pieter Hein. And I was surprised to find these Hollanders all joining in with Pieter Hein. That was fantastic for me. And then through the choirs, I had the opportunity in going overseas. Otherwise, I've never seen those places before, in 1981 and 84. I mean, I never thought I was going to see Rome or sing over Radio Vatican. I have never thought that in my whole life that I would have seen those places. It's also one of those slave songs, January, February, March, April. It's what they call Faith on a Boss type of thing. Comic songs. They're all together in one little group, and that comes follow one after each other. With the Guma, they normally sing that at weddings or picnics, that type of thing. This interview has now really awakened something in me to find out more about my family history, which I lacked. I just accepted as it is. We brothers, so we are 3 brothers and 1 sister, and that's it. And this made me more feel, no, I must go in depth to find out where do we come from. And this interview really played a big part in that, I must add.
Slavery was introduced when they brought the Indian people here. That was when slavery was introduced. And then it included the blacks. Slavery wasn't good. I mean, I don't agree with slavery, and I don't want to elaborate on that because I know the history about that. So I don't like slaves, even up until that's my opinion. My grandfather never talked about slaves. That was a very quiet subject. No, we never talked about that. You see, what I'm talking about slave was what I learned in school, but we never mentioned slaves in the house. My grandfather was a wood chopper. He used to chop wood, and he came home with trees on his shoulders. He was a big man, and he used to wear a red scarf. Every day, hot cold that never out of the red scarf, because if he came across the tree, he used to pick up that, fold the red scarf, put it on his shoulder, and put it lumber tree on, and he brought it home. Now our job was, we had a big yard, and we had that saw horses that you put your trees in, you cut it up, we had to cut it up, we had to glue it. That's what, hit it in half, and we used to sell wood. And we used to, my grandfather made a garden. We used roses, carnations, everything. We were selling. That was our living. That was our living. Wood and flowers. And mostly weekends, people, we used to make bundles of 100. And we sat, as I said, just put it outside the gate. And people, even European people, used to come around and collect, buy the wood. That was our living. When I come home from school, I had to make the wood and chop the wood and all that. That was my job. And then I had to do homework. That's what. And we were brought up very, I mean, how can you say that, stringent, understand? We couldn't step out of line. Even I myself, I remember one time I was 6 years old, and I bit, I fought with another boy and I bit him, you know, and I got the hiding of my life, you see. And you know what, that I had one more after that, and I never had one after since. I mean, because I know what discipline is. And I mean, I could have been a gangster or anything, but no, you know, that hiding that I got kept me on the straight and narrow. And I always tell my children about that, because I'm a father of 4 boys and 1 girl. Well, they're all married now, but when they were young, I used to eat them. That's how I brought my children up. Understand? No, we shouldn't be embarrassed about the heritage, because I think slave is slave. If you look down to it, if you come down to floor level, it's they that built the country. I am proud, as an individual, I'm proud of my surname. And I mean, from what we were until now, I mean, I've excelled. Understand? Because if I were there, if I stayed I wouldn't be here today. I had to better myself, and I don't want my children to be like me. I want them to be better. Understand? That's why I'm as a grandfather, and their mother and their father try to give them more. Understand? His father, my son now, you see that toolbox inside? He's going to pass that now as a toolmaker. My vrou, as enige een vir haar gesê, net verkeerde woord gesê het, dan sê sy, ek is Mrs. May, ek is gedruk en getik tot binne in die territorie. See? Because she was proud of her surname. Because she was automatically, if she's proud of her surname, she's proud of her husband as well. Wat ek haar uitgehaal het, she was also on the farm. Understand? I took her out of there and I left. Niet ek alleen nie. Met die man van Boes hy help, het ek ons mekaar ook gelag na, you see? Because they be all. Understand? Ek is nie hoogmoedig nie, maar net ek het daar onder vandaan. We came from the ashes and we came up. God lifted us up. Lifted us daar. En daar is ek vandaag.
I don't know much about slavery in South Africa.
Yeah.
Although we were taught about slavery in school when I was on primary school and high school, But on the history side, I don't know where the slavery comes from. But as I grew up, I got more get knowledge about whatever happened in the past. So for me, it's not something that I will go in and try to find out what happened there, but it would be nice to know where I come from and go. Stories about where my grandfather originally come from at Puckelsdorp. I knew that my great-great-grandfather was removed from one area to another area. And from there on, the family just grow. And my grandfather came from Puckelsdorp to Cape Town, and he and his wife then started the family here in Cape Town. So there's not much of the Judy's family in Cape Town. They're more from Puckelsdorp in George. The names or the surnames of the people that was given, I just inherit from my grandfather. So I assume it will be fine with me. So I'm not concerned about what names they gave us as slavery, but from now on we can just build on the name and be proud of where we come from and where we're going to as a family, as the Junis family. Yeah, it will be nice to know more of the history of our family or the slavery. And I think a person should go back and try to get some more information to know what had happened and where we come from. So it will be a great privilege for us as a Junis family to establish something from the history, to go and give it to our grandchildren so that they can know where we come from as slavery people. We're living now in the democratic country, which is for us very good, and it's nice to know that people can live together. But there was hard times. We were staying under the apartheid years, but that I was a child at that time. But things had got better, and now my children can get to places, or they can do things that they want to do, or they can get the education they want to get to. I don't think we should be embarrassed as a history of slavery. If it was part of developing South Africa, and for me it's fine. It was the hard way to start building South Africa, or even Cape Town, or whatever. It's part of a rich history where we come from. So for me, it's something that actually was started, and it wasn't right the way it started, but it brings something forth, and that the new generations after that is now reclaiming their right in society. For me, when I was young, I didn't know that we had some kind of history in the slavery. So for me, it was just growing up, go to school, and then after that you're a teenager, you got married, and then you bring your children get born. So it's not something that we knew. When I grew up in Philippi Crossroads area, and that was a time where things was very rough, and there's no facility, there's no water, there's no sewage, so we have to make a living there. But we grew up, and eventually my teenager years was that I went to school and I wasn't educated in a high education. So what happened, I went to work because we were 7 children, which I was the oldest, and I had to help my mother because my mother and father separated from each other. So I had to start working to get the other siblings to school and try to get them educated and things like that. So I started at the age of 13 to work. So it looked like the slavery was part of my life. Yeah. So that's how I grow up, and when I got to the teenager stage, I had friends and families. And when I got married, I met my wife in one of the chain stores where we got together. I'm not going to name the store. It will like sound that I bought it in the store. But I met her in a store, and that's where we met each other, and we then after that got married. So we started our family in Crossroads. And I educated my son and my daughter at college level, where they went to college, and we could actually lay a good foundation for them so that they can prosper in the future. My baby daughter is now in college, and we've moved to this area about eight years ago. So this area we actually build it ourselves. So it's an owner builder, and the Lord had blessed me with this. I'm not too shy to say that the Lord had blessed me, and I'm a very proud father of my children. For me, I'm not shy. I'm proud to be a Junis.
I don't know much about slavery in Cape Town, in the Cape. Yes, I became a Julie. When I was 20 years old, I got married with Julie. And from there, we all the family together. And my mother-in-law was very proud of me because I was the eldest daughter-in-law. I married with the second eldest son. He had a twin sister, but she also passed away. And then we still communicate with each other. We come together with one another once a while, you know. But my Julie children and me, we had a very close relationship. We are together every week. Every Saturday nights, every Sunday we had lunch together, all of us, with the grandchildren as well. No, I didn't know slaves were given calendar months' names, surnames. It makes me feel good because I'm one of them. As you can know me, you can see, I also got a surname that some of the others got. And sometimes you got people the same surname, but then you don't know each other. You know, you don't know each other. I think more could have been done because they are so far spread away out of each other now. It's so hard to come together. We always call a family reunion, and that's what we are busy on doing now. Because they want us to be in the new year, we must all come together as a family. Because the children are big and they don't know each other. Yes, I want to find out more about the family history, and it makes me feel good. You know, I'm happy to be a Julie. I'm very proud to be a Julie.
Nee, ek het nie eintlik dit is die eerste keer wat ek nou hoor. Nee, is eintlik goed om te weet. So ek was ook ernstig. Ek is voor nou gister, so ek was ook seker maar deel van daai. So ek kom 'n lang pad aan. Ek het ook my familie is arm van die begin tot die einde, so niemand kan my eintlik uit die Kaap uit sit. Ek is deel van die Kaap. Ja, ek ken eintlik net my oupa en my oupa grootjie was musikaal dood toe. So ek ken net eintlik my oupa. Dis aan my ouma, want hulle was mos nou nie eintlik van hier nie. Hulle het my heen toe beweeg. Hulle was mos nou my ouma's van Sint Helena by. My oupa is van Namakwaland en toe hulle Grabouw toe, Stellenbosch toe. Toe uiteindelik toe beland. Hulle mos nou hier. Ja, my oupa was hy was baie lig geweest en het groen oë gehad en hy het mos nog gladde hare gehad. En my ouma was nou bruin. Sy was donker en sy het sulke gladde hare ook gehad. So ek hulle was eintlik 'n gemengde paartjie. So ja, ek is baie proud van my surname. Baie. Augustus klink 'n bietjie snaaks, maar Ek is bly as Augustus want ek dink nie daar is eintlik baie Augustusie. So jy moet van my familie wees as jy van Augustus is. Somehow moet ons connected wees. So ek kan nie eintlik sê nie. Soos ons sal nou baie graag bou toe gaan. Hulle sê mos plaas toe. Nou dit is soms as die mense sê ek is van die plaas nou. Ag kan ons nou plaas toe of ons gaan Stellenbosch toe. Daar is nou iets wat want ons familie is mos nou eintlik daar lang nou daar. So ons het eintlik familie nog hier. So ek sal graag bou toe gaan. Het was vir my 'n taamlike ondervinding. Ek het nog nie geweet. Ek is ook daar op die Augustus. Nee, ek is
Well, I know somewhat of it. I know about the fact that because of the slavery, we basically, as coloureds, are here today. And I see myself as coming from that. If I'm correct, it was the time when the slave was bought that the owner never had, he just decided to name you that because that was the time when the slave was bought. So yeah, no, I'm fully aware of that. Look, for me the surname is strange. The fact that it's September, it was really it was uncommon. Any calendar surname was uncommon because one would ask yourself, where does it come from? How is it that you have that surname? And you will notice that it's, I think 99% is non-whites. I don't think one should be embarrassed about it. I think you as a human being coming from that background should actually strive to make things better, to try and where you can to help others because you know exactly what the suffering was about. So why would you want to be embarrassed because of something that you didn't have a part to play in? So me personally, I'm not embarrassed that I have the surname. The name is strange, but I cannot be embarrassed because it comes from a slave origin. It doesn't mean that today I'm still a slave. I strongly feel free to say what I want to, and do whatever I want to do in the parameters of the law. The only background that I know of my family is my father. I don't know whether he had any brothers. His mother, my father's mother, and he were brought up to believe that they were brother and sister. It was very late in his years. I think he was already 50 years old when he discovered that his sister was actually his mother. So we don't know, and he doesn't up until today. He doesn't. He's about 80 years old now. He doesn't know who his father is, you know. Which again, I say, I wouldn't want to go and find out. It could stir feelings within oneself to behave differently to people, especially when I think when I grew up I totally ignored my father's family side because there was that disparity between them. They had more than what we did, and we were like, and we lived on the Cape Flats, and they lived in a more affluent suburb. So there was already that discrimination between them and us, and because of that, I kept to myself, and the rest of us brothers and sisters, we kept to ourselves. We didn't really bother about them and who they were and what they were because of that discrepancies that there was. So I mean, again, I say today I'm happy. I've got my parents, thank God they're still alive, and I have my own family that I'm taking care of. So that love I share with them now, and I make them feel good, and I make them happy, and that's how I live today.
What I've learned from is that the slaves were brought to Cape Town and what's now called Waterfront. They used to they get off at the docks, you know, and the slave was also responsible for what we Second New Year, is where they used to come off the ship and entertain the people. That's where the coons originated from, you know, entertainment. And also learned that the reason why we have this different names, October, November, and those days, is that was a time when our forefathers was brought to Cape Town, and they were brought to Cape Town in that month. And in the era I grew up, the older people were very secretive about their past. They never used to share with you, you know, about the legacy, like you the child, I'm the parent, you don't ask any questions type of thing. Saying we didn't live in that era of the slavery, you know, the way they were treated. But I mean, if you look at apartheid and what it did to us, you know, we still bear the scars of it. What one thing that my father told us, that he had a sister, and she was October, she was light of complexion, and those years you could actually pay, if you were light complexion, pay a certain amount of money, and you could, like I say, buy yourself out as a white person. And she was October, but her surname then changed to Ockes, because she didn't want to be classified as, because she was light of complexion. It wouldn't affect me what my surname would be, you know, and but then getting to know and find out what October, you're always proud of something that you can, or someone you can look up to. With my work, I've been traveling all over South Africa, and a lot on farms, you know, and if you get a bit of knock where you're not allowed to sleep next to someone because you are colored, it doesn't affect you in so much, because you know what they went through as slaves. So in that way, it's an advantage for you. You won't be so affected by what's happening to you on a small scale to what they had to suffer as the slaves. There's actually a poem, what they call a gedig in Afrikaans, where they say, October, die mooiste maand van die jaar, the nicest month of the year. And that is where we get a lot of sunshine and et cetera, et cetera. That's where that poem originated from.
My name is Ruben November, and I'm from Peneel. The things that I know about slavery is by hearsay, and where my ancestors come from, especially the November, came from Madagascar, way in the 1800s. My grandfather was a descendant, so I don't know actually the older one, his dad, but and I don't actually know my grandpa, because he was also dead when I was born. I don't think enough has been done. I don't think justice has been done. You know, too many things has been just, you know, swept under the carpet, and the real stories isn't brought forward. I think it's because the way of living, you know, people don't want to be connected to slavery, and you know, there's all kind of myths going around about slavery. So I think there's now not too much has been done. Peneel was actually part of a farm, papiermolen, that was given to the slaves that was freed in 1834, but they were actually released in 1838, and this piece of land was given to them by some farmers. The de Villiers, Paul de Villiers, gave a piece of land. The original idea of it was for them to, you know, to get their own piece of land and home to be built on, and also to that the church must be built, and the school. So the school and the church was established on the same time, and that's why there's a lot of emphasis in this town about education. People is very strong on being educated. I think it's a way of, you know, getting away from the slavery mentality. Yeah, I did know that slaves were given calendarly months, their surnames especially, and I think it's about. It's also a hearsay that they couldn't pronounce the name, and then they were given the name of month, the year. But from my side, I've never been affected by being November. I've never been, sort of degraded, or I don't feel less better than you or something. One of my father's brothers, he changed his surname to Nober. He took out the Vem. He lived in Somerset East, in Eastern Cape. He was a teacher there, and he changed his surname, and maybe he was affected in that part of of the country where he was living. I've been now headmaster at Pernille for the past 20 years. My father was a senior teacher at the same school. I actually got his post when he retired in 1981. And I got his post in 1982. It seems that their father, his name was Seister November, they call him Seis, and my grandma was Cornelia, they call her Neely. They were very strong on being educated. My dad was a teacher, and his elder brother and the elder sister. So there were 3 out of the 5 were teachers or in the line of education. In our household, we are 7 kids, 4 is teachers. Exactly, definitely it can be a story of hope, because now I think we've been liberated through education, and we stand back for nothing, because we're well educated and we're well spoken, and we can argue sensibly about things, and you can learn about how to survive by just. I think it comes from the slavery side that people should support each other. When I was a kid and when I grew up, there was a lot of our, especially our mothers, were housewives, and they were the guardians of all the kids that passes or go through or come in the street and play in the streets, because they correct you and they help you, and they motivate you, and when there's in the older days, when there was a wedding, especially, there was everyone was at the church. It was like one of those wow moments in town. Nowadays, especially during funerals, there's a lot of support for families that lost loved ones, and I think that's where people can learn from. I think it's a part that came from slavery. I think it is a thing that came from not having everything, and you have to rely on the next one.
Oh, my grandmother is a fun person. She's all that strict with culture and everything, the way she raised us. Because I grew up with my grandmother. My mother was in the house, but she was always at work. And my grandmother is the one that raised us. She would always be strict that you don't wake up in the morning, go around with your pajamas. Yeah. You must first take a bath before eating breakfast, and she believes that a person needs to eat breakfast. You can't go throughout the whole day without having breakfast. No, I don't know much about them. Yeah. I just know that my grandmother and grandfather, we usually ask them how they met and how did they decide to move to this place out of all places. Okay. So my grandfather was from the Eastern Cape, and my grandmother, but she was from the Steekspreid. And then I think they met in Lensburg, and then they decided, okay, they're gonna move to Mankiesfontein. Yeah, it's just after Toosrivier. Yeah. And then from there they came to the Durans because there was work here, and they used to work at the farms. And then that's how they met, and then they got married, and then they have 4 children, which is there's only 3 left. It was 3 girls and 1 boy. And then my uncle passed away in 2007, and 2004 my grandfather passed away.
My great-great-great-great-grandfather was originally from the Eastern Cape in Lady Frey, like close to Queenstown. His name actually was December. And then it's really quite a huge family, so because the woman could not call him by name, they started like kind of euphemizing it. So that's where the other side of the family, you'll see their surnames are Desemele. But then they started using that as a surname. So that's why my grandfather, they started using the surname December. And then they moved to Stainsburg. It's also in the Eastern Cape. That's where you'll find the most Decembers. Like the most of them are there. Oh, my granny is from Stekspruit. It's also in the Eastern Cape. They met in Laingsburg, I think. My grandfather used to be a truck driver and my granny used to work in the hotel. That's where they met, and then together they moved to the Durans, where they worked on the farms together until my grandfather moved to Cape Town. Together they had 4 children, 1 son and 3 daughters. We are the grandchildren, and then she also has great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. Yeah, I actually went to a slave primary school in Somerset West. Yeah, and there we used to do like annual concerts where we would do like the story of the Alabama, stuff like that. In grade 6 we did that concert. So I actually know quite. But a lot of the children that, like for example the Decembers, if we had like slave origins and slave great-great-grandfathers and mothers, I'm not sure we'd know that history because it's not actually been recorded. And some of it is being misinformed because you'll see that like foreign people teach us about our own history, which does not make any sense to me. Actually not. I actually quite see it as an honor. It's really an honor to me. I don't see it anything as to be ashamed of. I think everyone should be part of the heritage.
Okay, usually in December we decide maybe from the 16th up until the 27th. Sometimes we go on a family vacation. We would all as a family go out. And then specifically on the 25th of December, since my grandfather was born on that day, we would make a lunch as a family together. The whole family comes together. We decide maybe we'll held it in Cape Town or in Eastern Cape or here in the Durans, wherever the family is. We decide each year where we're going to be having it. And then we'll have a Christmas lunch and we'd eat together. We'd take pictures. We'd go out that night and all that, yeah, just to celebrate.
As net so sê nog gesê, December maand is baie important vir ons.